your choice is all up to you. Too many things, don't know what to do. Speak your mind and you won't get judged. If it kicks off, you won't hold no grudges. What? Come online, come online. CSI, CSI. Come online, come online. CSI, CSI. Yeah, your choice is all up to you. Too many things, don't know what.
We all remember the 2008 financial crisis that crippled businesses in countries around the world. It was primarily caused by deregulation in the financial industry that permitted banks to engage in hedge fund trading with derivatives. Banks then demanded more mortgages to support the profitable sale of these derivatives. Meanwhile, here in Ireland, the economic crisis also stemmed from an uncontrolled real estate bubble that had developed over the previous 5 years, and the resulting collapse in the domestic financial system, which was heavily exposed to the property market. The Irish economy entered severe recession in 2008 and then entered into an economic depression in 2009. It was a trying time for companies and individuals alike, and some people would take years to get back on their feet, fighting for their businesses, families, and their own demons to come through the other side. Cut to 2012, and Chris Wojnac, 58 years old, was sitting in a psychiatric unit, surrounded by people suffering with one mental health issue or another. He wondered how he, once an astute businessman, got there. The nurses in the hospital had listened in a very caring way to all his troubles of how he felt he had let everyone down. He had a troubled mind, and suicidal ideation seemed to be a very real solution. The message the nurses gave was always the same. Stop being so hard on yourself. It will take time and baby steps forward, but possibly years before you will recover. Which is exactly what he did. Through persistence, resilience, and a one-step-at-a-time approach, he has found balance and meaning in his life again. It's an honor to have you here, Chris, and we're delighted to feature you on Common Society Issues with your story of absolute inspiration. Before we begin, though, I'm dying to know about your surname and the origins of it.
Great, thank you very much, Helen, for having me here today. Yeah, my dad was from Vienna in Austria, and the name originates from Poland, Russia, and it actually in Polish translates into warrior.
Well, that's very apt, I'd say, because that's exactly what you are. But now let's take it back. I mean, it's been a really tough time. You've had some really tough times in your life, and especially for the family business, but it wasn't always rough seas. So take us back and tell us a little bit about the beginnings of your foray into the business as a teenager.
Yeah, I can remember when I was 13, my dad said, right, come on, you're coming into the shop today. And I think that was a bit of a relief to my mum, because I was a bit hyperactive maybe. But anyway, we had a shop in Baggot Street in Dublin at the time, and I was put at the counter in the electrical department. And that was the beginning of my exposure to the retail business. The business was originally owned by my grandfather, and my mother and father had bought it off him or inherited it off him. And it was very much in the builders providers electrical wholesale, and it went through some tough times. And then we moved, my dad had bought a company in Capel Street, which was Wiggetters.
Okay.
So when Fletcher and Phillipson's in Baggot Street closed, we started in Capel Street around about the time I left school in the early 70s.
And now schooling for you was not a massive kind of shining light in your life. You didn't absolutely love it, but you did kind of have leadership qualities, and you were the head of a sports team, and that kind of got you through schooling.
Yeah, I focused all my energy on playing rugby and learning how to play rugby, and I learned a lot.
What position did you play?
I played what was called then a wing forward, which was flanker, and it was a challenge to get onto the team in the first place, because I wasn't very big. You know, I would have been the smallest of the pack.
But fast, I'm sure.
Yeah, quick off the mark.
Yeah.
But I found that when they made me captain at under 13 level, and then all the way through to the final seniors team, I got this inner talent, I suppose, that people followed me because I was the first one to take on the biggest guy at the opposite team. So that in many ways stood to me, you know.
The warrior was already shining through then. And now you mentioned about how the business changed and you guys started in more electrical and then it became Wicketers, and it's been around for many years, up until you and your brother took over the store. Can you tell us a little bit about that time of your life?
Yeah, so Wicketers is the first wallpaper shop in Ireland in Capel Street, and there was two brothers, a H Wiggeter and an M Wiggeter. The M Wiggeter store is the one we bought off Capel Street. And it was a bit of a funny transition because Mr. Wiggeter sold it to a Mr. Wiener, who sold it to Mr. Wojnac. So
it's all very confusing.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So, but the two brothers had split up, and one had gone to Talbot Street, and they actually opened a chain in the 60s and 70s through a number of locations around Dublin. And we bought Capel Street, and at that time there was just one store, and it was back in, as I say, in the early 70s. My dad passed away in 91, and from there on we'd got to about 10 or 11 stores in and around Dublin. One in Galway was the furthest reach. That's a bit of a funny story because people say, well, you know, you were in Dublin, why did you go to Galway? Well, the opportunity presented itself to my dad. He was a bit of an opportunist. And he said, listen, having a store in Galway would be great because we'll be able to go down there and do a bit of fishing as well. So, but,
a win-win situation.
A win-win situation. But we built the business then after Dad passed away. It was always my ambition to get to every county in Ireland. We didn't quite make that, but we got it to 30 stores, and we had great fun along the way, great team along the way.
Amazing. And I'm sure that the influence of your father assisted you along the way. Did you have any memories of the advice that he gave you that really assisted you in the successes of Wicketers back in the day and now?
Yeah, so he always had an ethos of building the team, you know, that people are never going to work for you, Chris, they'll work with you. So we're all working for the company, Wicketers. So continue that and give everybody a sense of ownership of the Wiggeter. You know, we're all working for the company. I remember early on having a little bit of an anxiety thing with him once, and I said, listen, Dad, you know, I really don't know about this, you know, dealing with bankers and insurance companies and lawyers and leases and all that sort of stuff. And he said, listen, one thing I'll tell you is just buy low, sell high, and you can pay for everybody in between, don't worry.
It sounds so simple, but it sounds kind of scary too, because I suppose maybe you're born with something like that, those negotiation skills to be able to be sure and kind of stick to you know, the price you want and the price that you're going to offer. How do you kind of get that?
Okay, so in the early buying trips, I went along with himself and another man who was he was a finder, if you like, for when we were sourcing goods in the UK at the time. Because you have to remember, back in the 70s, to take a flight to Manchester was like, at the time, maybe €280. 280 pounds. That's what a flight to Manchester was. So there was three of us.
It's like €30 now, I think.
Yeah. So I mean, you're probably talking the equivalent, if you take that now, to maybe the equivalent of 800 or 900. So there was three of us on a plane, and we would go sourcing product in the different manufacturing mills across the UK. And the trick was, if I could see an item that I knew would sell off the shop floor, I would put a retail price on it.
Okay.
And at that point, once I knew what I could sell it for, I knew
what to buy it for.
I knew what to buy. I had multiples in my head.
Okay.
So it was simple enough.
Yeah.
You know, I can give you multiples. They may, but you know,
Don't give away your secrets.
Well, you know, there's no secret, because as I said earlier on, if you buy it low and sell it high, that's that's what you have to do.
Yeah, exactly. That's good advice from your dad. And of course, I mean, over the years, you talk about the 70s, and trends changed as well. So you were very much in the wallpaper game and everything else. And then obviously trends kind of changed, and people maybe weren't purchasing that for their homes, and you know, all the home decor trends have changed as well. How did you overcome those challenges at the time?
Well, wallpaper became very much a fashion product then, you know. A lot of designers got into it. So it peaked in the early noughties, but there was a lot of things happening at the time. Paint companies were obviously looking for a share of the wall market. We were all fighting for that share of the wall market. We had to compete against the arrival of what we call sheds, you know, the big DIY stores. And basically what they did was they used white paint to increase their footfall. And once they took the footfall and wallpaper went a little bit out of fashion, then things began to change.
Yeah. And then, I mean, you mentioned the early noughties, and things were kind of on the straight and narrow. Things were getting better, and then boom, all of a sudden 2008, the financial crisis hit.
So, you know, when I think they used to call it the Celtic Tiger, and the property market was booming all the way up till 2007. About 2004, my brother and I had a meeting one day, and I had been doing a lot of number crunching, and I said, look, the plan was always that we had a mix of freehold and retail stores, and the plan was that we would use all the business to pay off and own the freehold stores, which would be a property company in the future. We decided that we would downsize and start while the market was hot, and we did. We managed to sell, move out of various leases and sell properties, and got to the stage in 2008 where we had just this one property left, which was at the time valued at 9 million, and having downsized the business, we were left with loans at 3, and that wasn't an issue, but banks were very happy with that.
Yeah.
But then the crash came, and the property that was worth 9 million was suddenly valued in 2013 at 900,000. Now you have a problem.
What?
So that's a reversal. So,
That's
you know,
awful.
people ask, can that happen again? Of course it can.
I know there's always that danger. I mean, apart from the business problems during that time, it puts pressure on relationships, and you've had personal problems that were challenging to you. What else was going on for you during that time that pushed you?
Yeah, so, you know, I think we all know in life that you've got to have a balance in every part of your life. And I had gone through a very traumatic divorce and into a new relationship. And whereas things were flying along, when things were flying along, you know, there's nothing like, I suppose, how would I put this, maybe a little bit of austerity to test a relationship.
Yeah.
So that was going on the rocks, and everything seemed to be disappearing down the tube very, very fast. And it was overwhelming, and it drove me to that point where eventually the anxiety and depression just took over in my head.
So the divorce actually really affected you quite harshly at that time?
Yes, the divorce was difficult, but then you know, the separation from my second relationship drove me over the edge.
And your children as well. I mean, it's a challenging time for them, and I think, you know, as parents, I'm a parent myself, and we always have guilt about our parenting skills and what we do and the choices we make. But, you know, to be involved in that, you must have questioned yourself a lot, you know, with that parental guilt that we all have.
Yeah, because, you know, I mean, obviously you know, I'm very lucky to have 7 children.
Wow.
5 boys and 2 girls, ranging at the moment from the ages of Adam is 43 down to 18. So, yes, I felt I'd let them down a lot. They had the lads had moved on mainly in their life at the time, but you know, the love and affection that they'd given me was a great strength to me over the years as well.
And are they involved in the business now, the boys?
No, none of them were involved in the business. I think when their mother at the time encouraged them away from the business, because she felt, well, look, you know, you can see how many hours it's taken up. I mean, when we were building the business, we were talking about 7-day trading, 3 late nights.
Yeah.
The phone didn't stop. We had great teams, but it didn't stop. You know, it was full on. It was 70, 80 hours a week.
That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, it was a lot of pressure, but she sort of said, well, she felt that, look, you know, there's maybe better quality of life, maybe trying other
Elsewhere,
things.
yeah. So when I mentioned in your story in the introduction that you got to the point where you were basically at rock bottom and having suicidal ideation, when did that happen?
First memory of that would be early 2012, and I remember I had qualified through another business that I'd got involved in to go to Macau on a trip that I'd qualified for, and I remember being in you know, in a bad place in my mind, but I did get away on that trip and being in the tallest building up in Macau, and you were able to walk around the outsides. They put you in a harness.
Yes.
And all I can remember doing is feeling the buckle and thinking I could do it now.
Oh my gosh.
And
so what made you seek help? Was that the moment, the turning point, or what was the turning point that made you actually...
The turning point was I'm very lucky to have a very strong brother, and when we had basically gone back on the shop floor here in 2012 after the crash and walked back in here and started again, he brought me down to the Clune Weir part of St. John of God's, where they assessed me and felt that I should come in for a stay.
And how long were you in for in total?
In 2012 it was 2 months, and then 2013 it was another 2 months.
And then obviously there was a course of medication that you were on subsequent to that, and you weren't that keen on that from what I hear. So what happened with that? What made you decide to stop the medication?
Well, yeah, so I was on everything, I reckoned I was on everything beginning with pine, olanzapine, mirtazapine, and then they put me on lithium, and the lithium was probably the strongest of all, because it just seemed to be collapsing my whole body, my whole everything. So one day, now I know I was addicted to all of these drugs, because the thought of not having that there in the morning or there in the evening was quite frightening to me. But one day I went into the chemist, and there was no money in the bank account because the business just didn't have enough cash to put money in my bank accounts. And I got into the car and I said, well, that's it. No money, no drugs. So I had been introduced to an alternative product at the time, and I didn't realize it. But anyway, 2 months later I went back to the psychiatrist, and he said, how are you, Chris? And I said, I'm absolutely great. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, I'm great. He said, well, what's happened? I said, well, I gave up everything. He said, you can't do that. You can't go cold turkey like that. Well,
And
I said,
you did.
I have.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm not going back on them. And that's when things began to turn for me.
Amazing. I mean, there have been so many people, kind of angels on your path as well along the way. Can you tell us a little bit about those people who, apart from your brother, who kind of really got you through those tough times?
Yeah, you know, each one of my children, and maybe my youngest daughter, you know, she took a great interest in golf, and she used to drag me out on the golf course because that was the last place I wanted to go. And you know, she was a great inspiration to me. And then I had some very, very solid friends who never gave up, who would take me out, and we'd have some good heart-to-heart conversations, and some of them were very business orientated. But I was very lucky to, one of the other tips my dad had given me is, look, you know, look after the people that you meet on the way up, because you'll surely meet them on the way down as well.
My mum said that to me as well. That's a really good advice, yeah.
And I'm lucky that I had that as well, yeah.
And you got through those times, and you came out the other side, and you're a changed man. And now you've had another challenge, especially as a business, with the pandemic and the lockdowns and everything else. I mean, probably the upward trajectory of getting the business back, getting things together, and then the pandemic hits. How have you coped with that? That's a big sigh.
Yeah, well, no, well, you know, the pandemic was actually a blessing to Wiggiters now, because what's happened since was Patrick who owns and runs Wiggiters now under license, walked in here in 2007, and I was looking to get out from behind the counter, having got it to that situation, because there was a lot of work to be done with refinancing and working with banks, etc., etc. And I didn't have the time to be serving customers and sorting that. So Patrick took over Wiggiters, and when the pandemic hit, he was doing more business in 3 hours at home, because we were in lockdown, over orders coming in over Facebook and Instagram, than he was at any other time. So
Amazing.
The whole pandemic for Patrick was a huge shift in business, because everybody was painting, everybody was at home. We could, the only issue we had, we couldn't get enough paint.
Oh, really? I know. Unfortunately, I was in a rental at the time, so I didn't get to do all of that. So that was a problem. But you've mentioned a few people who have given you advice, and you have these kind of mottos in your life. How important is it to know when to take someone's advice and which advice to take?
Well, I think again, it's one of the things I say is, you know, advice and opinion come from those who are qualified to give it, have professional indemnity insurance, and have always sent me a fee note. The rest to me is mere points of view and bar talk. So picking your professionals is very important. And how do you pick your, well, your intuition is probably the strongest thing that you can follow, and either it's right or it's not right.
Yeah.
You know, and you get that very, very quickly with experience. And I suppose I'm lucky enough to have over 150 years of business in my DNA, so you know,
that helps.
That helps,
for sure. Yes. And now tell me a little bit about the last couple of years then. It sounds like it's been successful. What goals have you got now in your life?
My goals in my life is which I'm very happy to report that I got had a great result yesterday. So I'm well on the way now of restructuring and refinance the whole business. It's very close to me that very few businesses transfer from the first generation to the second generation. So we would be the third generation of owning the company that was first established in 1926.
Yeah.
So that will transfer to somebody now, with the news I got yesterday. So
That's
I'm well
really
on the way.
exciting.
Yeah.
That's a success story right there.
Yeah. So that was my goal. Now, you know, that's the very big step yesterday. So it's now a matter of just dragging it across the line.
Incredible. And are you going to slow down ever?
You know, I don't want to stop. You know, I've really enjoyed if you like, my new career that I found through, which is as an independent business consultant, helping startups, helping businesses scale, build, sell their company or their product. And that's given me amazing satisfaction, and that profile is growing, and more people are coming to me to help them build their businesses.
I mean, it seems like a bit of a cliche to say this, but everything happens for a reason, and the stuff that has happened to you, that you've fought your way through to come to the point where you are and the man that you are today, is ultimately now helping other people, which is a beautiful story.
Yeah, I mean, I get great satisfaction out of it. And you say, you know, everything happens for a reason. That is exactly what my youngest daughter kept saying to me.
At the time, you're going, why is this happening?
Well, I'm saying from a 14-year-old saying, where did she get that from?
Yes, well, she gets it from you.
Yeah,
She's got good DNA.
Yeah.
So, Chris, what advice do you have for anybody who might be going through a tough time like you went through, and possibly realizing that they're not coping mentally? What can you tell them?
I think the hardest thing for men especially is to open up and to actually go and ask for help. You know, go. You know, I mean, yes, my brother brought me down, but the first place I went was to my GP. You know, and to ask somebody for help, because the more you internalize it, the more you're going to be stuck in the bog. You know.
Yes.
You've got to get it out, you've got to express it,
Yeah.
and you've got to get out there and ask for help.
And then accept the help.
And then accept the help, absolutely. Stop fighting it, you know.
Yeah. Well, Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on Common Society Issues and sharing your amazing story of inspiration and success. And I just wish you all the best, and I hope that everything goes from strength to strength.
Thank you very much. Very enjoyable. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If you have an interesting story that you'd like to share with us, or perhaps you want to get something off your chest, maybe you're a professional who has a common society issue that you would like to discuss, or even just a story of inspiration to share with our viewers, please feel free to contact us on our website. For Common Society Issues, I'm Helen Desbois.
Hi, I'm Helen.
Hey, I'm Candy.
Hi, I'm Michael.
Hi, I'm Ivy.
And this is Lucia.
Thank you for watching CSI.
Make sure to subscribe to CSI Common Society Issues.
And remember to hit that notification bell.
Thank you.